Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, and welcome to DC Fans United. So we've got a lot to unpack here today. We're going to be talking about Tom King, and more specifically his newest issue of Heroes in Crisis. So issue number 8 of Heroes in Crisis just came out. Tom King, of course, is the writer on this story. So this has been really controversial of a story from the very beginning. A lot of things have been kind of strange, so finally we're getting towards the end. I believe I know issue 9 is going to be the last issue, so that's one thing I do think people should probably try to keep in mind, is that there's one more issue, so it's possible everything's going to have a switcheroo at the end. Just keep in mind Final Crisis, for instance. Everyone, it looked like Batman was dead. Darkseid killed Batman, right? But on the very, very, very last page, there's one page that shows Batman still alive. So something like that could definitely happen here. But in any case, issue number 8 was totally insane and really had Wally West, who is a hero, act completely out of character, much more like a villain than anything else. So this, of course, has a lot of fans upset, and, rightly so. I agree. I think that basically any criticism of the book is fine, up to the point of actual death threats. If he got death threats, that's not cool. We went through this before with when Batman number 50 came out, and Batman and Catwoman were supposed to get married and they didn't, and he got death threats then, and I did a video then that was very supportive of him. So he did end up having bodyguards and stuff at the next Comic-Con after that, so I imagine he's taking this sort of thing very seriously, but at the same time, he is a very public figure, and once you're kind of a big time famous person, you're gonna get all kinds of crazy stuff. So if he's getting some death threats on Twitter, of course that's not acceptable. I'm not trying to minimize that, but at the same time, when you're in the public sphere, you're going to get all kinds of crazy stuff. Even just, being a YouTuber of any prominence, those folks get all kinds of hate all day, every day. So writing a comic book, it's not like the snail mail days. People have their instant reactions and they will at you on Twitter. So I don't blame him for reporting those things. A lot of times that is violating, obviously that's violating the terms of service of Twitter. I do think, though, that he could be using this to deflect from the legitimate criticisms of Heroes in Crisis, which are namely that a lot of people aren't happy with Wally West acting out of character. So I'll get into that a little bit, but there's a couple reviews I would recommend because they do a really good job of reviewing Heroes in Crisis number 8. So you can kind of see for yourself, if you haven't read the issue, what they think of it, and then you can form a better opinion for yourself. So one of those folks is Ash on Comics. He did a really thorough and detailed review of Heroes in Crisis number 8, and he talks a lot about Wally West as a character and why he is such a good person. So I'll include a link to that in the description box, but it really shows how out of character Wally West was acting in this issue. Another review that was really good is on Nerdette's Newsstand. So she went through the issue, and hers is a very good review too. She's a lot more passionate about it, though. You can tell she is not happy at all with how this story went. So I found that to be very good review too, because it kind of gives you a real good feeling of how the fan base is just upset by this. Personally, I don't know. I mean, I've always been more of a Barry Allen guy, so I'm not that upset about it. The writing itself would be actually kind of good, I think, if it weren't a character that's already been well established. The writing is, Ash on Comics said this, it's like the writing is, he said it in so many words, but it's like the writing is good, but Wally West is acting out of character. Tom King isn't being a good caretaker of the characters in this instance. Another thing that people are so upset about is Wally West killed off 8 characters, one of the main ones being Poison Ivy. So Poison Ivy's dead in the current continuity because of this storyline, and this is all canon too. It's not some Elseworlds thing or anything else. I'm kind of wondering if the last issue is going to be oh, it was just all a dream or something, because it's so off the rails at this point. I mean, Wally West is dead too, because he goes into the future 5 days and kills himself, and then plants his own body. I guess it's to cover up the murder, but I mean, he killed himself too. So they took the character of Wally West, who is a good, hopeful hero. They turned him into a murderer and a liar, and he killed himself, and he frames Harley Quinn and Booster Gold. So he sets up other people, and it's just like, why would you do this? You know, it's bad enough what they've been doing to Superman in the Bendis run, but this is far worse if it sticks as canon. I am hopeful, though, like I was saying, there's one more issue. Honestly, even if it's just some BS excuse like, oh, it was a dream or something, that would be fine, because it would undo all of this. Honestly, I had kind of assumed the whole time that Psycho Pirate was behind the scenes, and he was actually influencing different people so that there were multiple murderers. So like Harley would have been a murderer and Booster would have been a murderer. As the story had indicated, it had pointed to those two. But it would have been that they killed someone, but it wasn't under their own free will, right? The Psycho Pirate essentially made them do it because he controlled their emotions. Some people that are super strong-willed, I don't think he could do that to, but you know, that's a whole other story, which I don't think is the story we have here. I do kind of think it would have been a better story. Even if it had been that Wally West was the only killer and that Psycho Pirate had influenced him to do it, I think that would have been a better story. But at this point, it's so convoluted with, he didn't just kill them, he had to frame people to look like they were the murderers and everything else. It doesn't seem like Psycho Pirate would have him do all that. He mostly just affects people's emotions. He makes people scared or angry, stuff like that, and then feeds off of those emotions. He doesn't have them frame people and do all this complex stuff, but that could be how Tom King writes it. So we're gonna have to see in issue number 9. But the big news is, yeah, Tom King has gotten some sort of death threats on Twitter, and he reported them to Twitter. So whoever did it should probably end up getting banned. I'm pretty sure Twitter will do that. They usually don't mess around, and they generally will ban accounts like no problem. So hopefully that'll be the end of it, and that's the only, death threats he has to deal with, because that's never acceptable. But he didn't really show them either, which seems to be something he generally doesn't do. I'm not sure why, but I actually don't doubt him, because people online are crazy. But at the same time, it's like people online are crazy. So if you let everything become a big, huge issue, it kind of takes control of you. So that's my opinion on it. Like, if I were him, I would just ignore it. I would probably block whoever did it and then just move on. So I think that's about it. Oh, a little bit more about Tom King, though. This Heroes in Crisis thing, it's just like a case study in people being depressed. I don't know if Tom King needs to go to a counselor or something. I mean, I know he was in the CIA and he went overseas. He might have some kind of like trauma he needs to work through. But Mr. Miracle, that is a super depressed book. Batman, the current Batman's real depressed. And this Heroes in Crisis, this has been a super depressed book too, not just with Batman, but like all the characters. I mean, the Wally West's whole reason for killing everyone is because he's sad. So yeah, I don't know. My unprofessional analysis is that Tom King might need to, just look into some therapy or something, and try and work out some of these issues, because he's gotten so depressed that his writing, I should say, has gotten so depressed that he's writing characters out of character just to make them depressed. It's a little strange. I mean, it worked with Mr. Miracle. It kind of works with Batman, although I don't think Batman would mope around so much. Like, he's more of a take action kind of guy, although I do think he has a very profound inner sadness, but that's, not really something I would dwell on for 100 issues. So that's just my take on Tom King as a writer. Overall, though, this series has had very good art. I mean, Clay Mann and Mitch Gerards are really good artists, and I mean, the writing is pretty solid. It's a little flowery, like he says a lot more words than is really necessary, but writing people out of character is just not really gonna fly when you're writing comic books. You can do that with original characters all day, but when you're using characters that are, the established canon isn't even that old for some of this stuff. Like in Ash's review, he kept referencing Wally West comics from Rebirth. So it's not like we're talking about pre-crisis stuff here. So I think that's all for now, but just keep hope, guys. There's one issue left. That's the big message in DC Comics throughout, is to always keep hope. That's the message at the end or really in the middle of Blackest Night. That's the core message behind Superman, and the core message behind Wally West, the real Wally West, is that there's always hope, never give up hope, and it's always darkest before the brightest day. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And be sure to hit the bell for notifications. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And as always, thank you for watching and being a part of DC Fans United.
End of line.